Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to Sid's Little Corner of the Internet. We've got another Transformers review coming your way. This time around, we're going to be taking a look at the Transformers Studio Series Core Class Shockwave. So this is Shockwave as we saw him in the first 3 minutes of that Bumblebee movie. So as we always do, let's go ahead and take a look at that packaging first. And this is the new Core Class packaging, which is a little different than what they had previously packaged these guys in. Personally, I like it. And right up top, we have the artwork where you can see a little bit of Shockwave there. You do have Transformers Bumblebee right there, Transformers up the side, big old Decepticon logo, and over here on the side, a little bit of artwork. On the back, you get your product shots, you get your warnings, and you get your sad Core Class baby. Over here on this side, you get a little bit of artwork, verifies that it is Core Class. We've already taken a look at the top, and then down here at the bottom, there's some manufacturing information. So not a whole lot to that packaging, but let's go ahead and crack that box open and see what came with Shockwave. Behold, here you see everything that came inside that package with Core Class Shockwave. And we'll start as we always do with a little sheet of warnings. And you get your instruction booklet. And the only accessory that he comes with is his cannon. And for a Core Class figure, this really isn't that bad. I like the paint apps on it. I like the molded in detail, so I think for the most part they've done a pretty good job here on this guy. So there you go. Obviously, being Core Class, they're going to save money where they can, so a lot of hollow areas on the bottom. But you do get nice paint apps even right there in that little area. So yeah, no real complaints here. It's the one and only accessory he comes with, and I think for a Core Class price point, they did it right. All right. So that is everything that came inside that box other than the Shockwave himself, and then this, if you want to call it a backdrop, I suppose you could. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it, but number one, it's kind of beat up because this is where they had the the little packaging strings to hold him in to keep people from lifting him. But as far as backdrops go, you're probably not going to use this, but I guess it's nice that they at least included it, and you do get a little B127 right down there, so that's kind of cool. All right, but yeah, that is it for everything that came inside that box other than Shockwave himself. So let's go ahead and bring him in for his close-up. Take a look at this guy. And here's the bot we've all been waiting for. This is the Core Class Shockwave. And being a Core Class, he is tiny. So just keep that in mind as we take a look at this guy. But I think for the most part, the detail that they packed into this figure for his size, it's pretty good. So let's go ahead and bring him in, and we'll start as we always do with that head sculpt. And yeah, that looks like Shockwave from the Bumblebee movie. You got that big old yellow eye there, and all kinds of sculpted detail everywhere you look on this guy. So I think as far as that goes, I think they did a really good job. Nice paint apps right here around his chest, and then even around the eye itself. You've got a little bit of silver there. Then coming down to that ab area. No paint apps, but it looks pretty good. And then coming down here to those legs, definitely got a lot going on. And coming over here to the side, you can see those Shockwave feet. And then you can see those tank tracks, which is his alt mode. And good amount of detail right in there. Even up underneath, not real bad. No real hollow areas on this guy for the most part, so can't complain too much about that. And coming up here to those arms and those hands, I think for a core class, they look pretty good. And coming around to the back, even from the back, he looks good. I like this guy. He's a cool looking little figure. As far as details go, as far as the overall aesthetic goes, I think for the price point, they've done a really good job here. Now, moving on to the articulation. The articulation is limited on this guy, even more limited than I was expecting for a Core Class. So starting up here at the head, you don't get anything side to side or up and down. There's just nothing there. You can turn the head, but that's it. And even then, it feels like it catches in a few places, but it doesn't. It's just nice and tight, I guess, so no complaints there. And then coming down here to the shoulders, you can lift those arms up about that far, and you can take them all the way around if you want. They're on ball joints underneath there. And then at the elbows, you don't get quite 90 degrees at those elbows, but you do get bicep rotation right up here. And then you also get a forearm rotation. Now the forearm rotation is meant for the transformation, but of course you can utilize that in his bot mode as well. And nothing at the waist, so the waist is fixed. And then at the hips, that's about as far as you're going to get with him as far as the splits go before he, essentially his geometry starts running into these little bumps right there above his waist. And as far as kicking forward, you're going to kick forward about that far. You'll kick backward about that far. And then you'll get about that much knee bend. So not a lot of knee bend either. Just enough to get him in some poses, but nothing real dynamic. And then down here at the feet, you do get a little bit forward on those feet, and then you get all the way down on those feet as well for transformation. So as far as articulation goes, he's kind of weak. Even for the core class, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more articulation in this guy. You can still get him in poses, but you're not going to do anything really dynamic with this figure. But yeah, that covers details on articulation, so let's go ahead and get this guy accessorized up and take a look at him with his gun. Alright everybody, so here is the core class Shockwave all accessorized up, and although he only comes with that one cannon, I am very pleased to report that that cannon is effects compatible. So yay, we finally get some effects compatibility here, and it definitely makes a world of difference for this little guy. Now, I may be going a little overboard here with the big boom, but I'm just excited to see that it's available. So yeah, he looks good with his cannon on, and you can use it on his left hand or his right hand, and obviously you can put whatever effects on there if you want, or no effects at all. It's totally up to you. But yeah, very happy that he does have this effect compatibility. And for the one rifle, or the one cannon, it looks good. I just got to keep reminding myself this is a core class figure, so I have to keep my expectations limited. But yeah, very pleased to see this. So let's go ahead and move on. The transformation on this guy isn't too complex, but we'll go ahead and we'll walk through it anyway, and we'll get this guy transformed up into his alt mode. Now let's go ahead and get Shockwave transformed into his alt mode, which is that Cybertronian tank. The first thing you're going to want to do is take this cannon off. So just give that a little bit of a wiggle. While you have this cannon, you're going to need to move this peg anyway. So go ahead and take that and move it 90 degrees. So you should have it oriented like that, because we are going to plug this into the back of his head for the cannon mode, or the tank mode, excuse me. All right, so the next thing you can do is just take these arms, get them out of your way like that, and then take these legs right here. Now these legs have hinges, and on the back side here you can see those hinge points. So you're going to take those legs and you're going to do this with them. So you're going to kind of put him in that H pattern right there, and that's going to give you the clearance that you need for the next step here. While we have him here, let's go ahead and drop those feet. And you can kind of see the front of the tank taking shape here. You're going to take his chest assembly, give that a pull, and then you're going to bring that chest assembly down. It's going to go over that right there, and then if you flip him around, you'll see you've got this tab and this slot back here. So then you're going to bring that all the way down, and then you're going to give that a squeeze, and then you're just going to plug that in where it goes. Now on the sides here you do have these little ports, or these little pegs, and then you have these little ports right there. So you're going to align those together, give those a little push, and do the same thing on the other side. So now you have the front of the tank, the lower body complete. And then take these arms, and you're going to go ahead and kind of proactively angle these arms kind of like this. This is my least favorite part of the transformation, because there's really nowhere to lock these in, but we're going to take this upper assembly right here, and you're just going to rock that forward, and then you've got this tab and that slot right there. Bring all that forward. Get those arms out of your way. Give that a squeeze. All right, so once you're here, now this is just a matter of lining these arms up in an approximate location, which I'm not the happiest about. But get these oriented approximately like that. And then once you have that, then you're going to rotate these forearms around. And this can be a little bit tricky because you do have this point of rotation at the bicep, but then you also have this forearm rotation right here. So ultimately what you're trying to do here is you're trying to get this tilted like that, bring this forward, because you have a slot and a tab right there, and you want to get those aligned like that. Bring that together. So the side of your tank should start looking something like that. And then do the same thing over here. So give that a bend. This is the way I do it. I give that a little bit of a bend right there at the elbow, and then I turn the forearm. That way I can get my tab put into my slot right there, and then just give that approximate angle where these look kind of sort of flush. And then everything here, to the best of what I can tell me in the comments if I'm wrong, but to the best of what I can tell, the rest of this is just eyeballing. So you're making sure that everything pretty much lines up, and then, you know, when you set him down, then you can give everything a little bit of a push and make sure that he's locked in place, or, well, he's not really locked anywhere, but make sure that he's kind of oriented like that. Once you have it here, your next step is you're going to take that head, you're going to turn that head around, and he has a hole in the back of his head. And then you're going to align that peg with that hole. You're going to give that a little bit of a push. And there you have the cannon on. And there you have, to the best that I can figure out, there you have Core Class Shockwave in his tank mode. So let's go ahead and take a look at his details while we've got him in this mode. And yeah, I mean, he's a Cybertronian tank, so he can look any way he wants to look, and this is the way he chooses to look. And yeah, it looks good. No major complaints. Again, keeping in mind that this is a core class figure. So you do have those little tank treads right back here. You have them right back here. And yeah, I'm fiddling a little bit because it's not quite aligned the way I like it. It just doesn't look parallel to me, but it is what it is. I'm going to stop messing with him and just show the figure off. So there he is from the top, and there he is from the bottom. Most of these details we've already seen in the bot mode, so there's not a whole lot of big reveal going on here. But yeah, I think with that cannon on top, he looks good. And of course, you can take those effects and you can give him the big boom in his tank mode, which seems, ooh, other than they're being droopy, which seems kind of appropriate, you know. Those effects are too heavy for that tank, or for that cannon to stick up a little further than like I would like, but yeah, it looks pretty good. All right, and as far as articulation goes, you can lift the cannon up, you can push the cannon down, and then you can turn the cannon essentially a full 360 any direction that you want. So yeah, I mean, for a little core class guy, he's not too bad, other than the fact that I wish those would lock in. And if they do, great. Just looking forward to somebody telling me if I did something wrong. All right, so let's go ahead and do some alt mode comparisons while we've got him in tank mode here, and see how he stacks up to some other figures. For our first comparison, I figured we'd start with a couple of Cybertronian tank mode Shockwaves. So on the left, of course, is the core class Shockwave, as we saw him from the Bumblebee movie, and on the right-hand side is the Studio Series 56 Shockwave, as we saw him in Dark of the Moon, and you can see the similarities and the differences between the two. For our next alt mode comparison, here we have the core class Bumblebee Shockwave next to the Transformers Prime Shockwave, and yeah, there's definitely a lot of similarities here between the two of these Cybertronian Shockwave tank modes, and I think they look pretty cool beside each other. And for our last alt mode comparison, here we see a couple of core class tanks. So of course on the left you have the Studio Series Bumblebee core class Shockwave, and on the right you have the War for Cybertron core class Megatron in his tank mode, and you can see how those two look side by side. That'll wrap it up for the alt mode comparison, so let's get this guy transformed back into his bot mode. Now to get Shockwave back into his bot mode, the first thing you're going to want to do is remove that cannon. So just take that cannon and just start wiggling it until you pull it out of the back of his head. And then you can just put that off to the side. While you're here, you can take that head, rotate that head around 180 degrees. And then once you're done with that, then you can take these arms and just kind of move those out of the way like that. And then bring this whole assembly back. So just give that a pull. That'll bring that entire assembly back, so you should have something that looks like that. Then come down here to the legs, and then you're going to spread those legs open just a little bit right there so you can pull these pegs out of those ports right there. And once you've done that, now you can turn around to the back, pull this flap, lift that flap up, and then you're going to put his chest back where it belongs. Just give that a little bit of a squeeze right there. You should have something like that. Now you can take these legs and bring those legs down, and as you do, they'll just straighten up right there, and that from that H pattern just to that straight pattern like that. And then you take those feet, bring those feet forward, and you have the legs finished. So now you can just turn your attention to those arms. So just give those arms a little bit of a pull out and then bring them forward. Once you do that, you have this tab and slot system right here. Just give that a pull, separate that out. And then you're going to want to be careful here because you do have this point of rotation down here at the bottom of the forearm, and you also have this rotation at the bicep. So make sure when you're doing this that you give the bicep a bend and then rotate that forearm. So that way you have your bicep bend happening in the right place, and you should have those tank treads sitting on the inside. So do the same thing over here. Break that a little bit, bring that arm forward, give that bicep a bend, and then rotate that forearm. And there you have Shockwave back in his bot mode, ready to go. And now that we have him back in his bot mode, we'll go ahead and we'll get into those bot mode comparisons. So for our first bot mode comparison, I figured I would go ahead and start at the beginning. And this is my original G1 Shockwave next to the core class Shockwave from the Bumblebee movie. And yeah, my G1, if it looks like he's hunched over a little bit, it's because his knees aren't as strong as they used to be, and if I have his legs straight, they'll collapse and he'll look considerably shorter than what he should. I guess that's just kind of par for the course. You know, when you've had a toy for 40 years, I guess after a while things start to give on them. So there you go. For our next bot mode comparison, here we see the core class Shockwave next to Shockwave as we saw him from Transformers Prime. Next up is the Studio Series 56 Shockwave as we saw him from Transformers Dark of the Moon. For our next bot mode comparison, here we see the core class Shockwave next to the leader class Shockwave from the Transformers War for Cybertron trilogy. Next bot mode comparison is the Masterpiece Shockwave MP29 next to the core class Shockwave from Bumblebee. And just for tees and ahas, here is the core class Shockwave with a few other Shockwaves that I have in my collection. It's always fun to get these guys together and look at all the different shades of purple. For our final bot mode comparison, here we see the core class Shockwave from the Bumblebee movie with the other core class figures in my collection from the War for Cybertron trilogy. And yeah, these guys all look pretty good together, so there you go. That'll do it for the bot mode comparison, so let's go ahead and get into those final thoughts. Alright folks, let's go ahead and talk about the Transformers core class Shockwave as we saw him from the Bumblebee movie. I think as far as core class figures go, this is a pretty decent one. I think keeping in mind the core class price here, I think he hits most of the marks, and if you've collected the other core class figures, then this one is going to be a no-brainer to put into your collection. But let's go ahead and quantify that a little bit and put some numbers to him. And we'll start, as we always do, with the aesthetics, the overall look of the figure. And I think this is probably one of the stronger points for this figure. He looks good from every angle, particularly for that core class price point. He's got good detail everywhere as far as like sculpted in or molded in detail. The paint apps are on point. And the overall look of this guy, I think from a shelf presence standpoint, looks good. Very few hollow areas. You do have some. Again, keeping in mind this is a core class figure. But for the most part, they're few and far between, and they don't really detract from the overall look of the figure. So I'm going to give him high marks on the overall aesthetics here. I'm going to give him a 9 out of 10. Moving on to articulation. This is easily the weakest point for this figure. I'm actually disappointed in the limited articulation in this figure, even for the price point. So, I mean, you can get him in poses, but you're not going to be incredibly dynamic with him. He has limited range of motion in that head, in those elbows, nothing at the waist, limited range in the knees, and limited range in the feet. Hips are okay. I mean, you're going to be able to do what you need to do with the hips as far as a split or kicking forward or backward, but everything else I think is really lacking in the range of motion that we've become accustomed to. So overall articulation on this guy is not very good. I'm going to give him a 6 out of 10 on articulation. Moving on to accessories. He only comes with the one. He comes with that cannon, but gosh, for a core class figure, this thing is pretty. It's painted well, it's sculpted well, and it's effects compatible. All good things. So for a figure at this price point, for a figure at this size, I can't really imagine what other accessories I would want. But I think for the most part, what they've done here is pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and give him an 8 out of 10 for accessories on there. Overall quality, I have no issues with this figure. None of my joints are loose. I don't have any paint application issues. Nothing going on with the molding as far as any defects there. So overall quality is good. My biggest complaint is going to be, I guess if you want to call it, that display stand that most of these studio figures come with. Mine is dinged up and damaged. Not real happy about that, but he is just a core class. I'm going to give this guy an overall 9 out of 10 on quality. Bringing us to our last bullet, which is overall value. Again, keeping in mind that this is a core class figure, I'm going to give this guy an 8 out of 10 on overall value. This is a figure that I picked up. I found him in the wild at Walmart. The prices are creeping up on these core class figures. The retail price at Walmart was $10.97 US dollars. So it's a little bit more expensive than what it used to be, but I still think for what you pay, you get a lot in these figures. So as I said, the value is an 8 out of 10, which is going to put us overall at 40 out of 50 for this figure, which puts him at an overall 80%. I'm easily able to recommend this figure. That 40 out of 50 or that 80% is really hit hard by this limited articulation. If he had more articulation, he'd be sitting at, an 86 or an 88% recommendation as far as from me. But that articulation, it's just, you're going to be limited in what you can do. But for the most part, I think this is a good figure. I think you should pick him up. I think you're going to enjoy him. And yeah, I have no problems recommending this figure other than that articulation. So with that, that's going to wrap up the review. As I always say, thanks for watching, guys. If you haven't already done so, be sure to hit that like button. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and leave me some comments. Let me know what you think. I'd be really interested to hear what everybody thinks about that tank mode and if I am doing something wrong in that transformation. So until we talk to you guys in the next review, take care.